Hey, this is Dr. Paul Dyer. Welcome to another show of Bridges Live, and I am talking with Tamika Sims. You know, I like to bring people to Bridges and get you from here to there. One of the things we like to do in Bridges is to, one, educate, and then have an understanding, and then hopefully it puts you into an action. So, Miss Tamika Sims, welcome to Bridges Live.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
So, the reason why I contact you, Miss Tamika, is because you've been helping people write and get published and the whole author thing, and I am just a writer by love and passion, and there's so much more to just writing books and putting it out there. So,
right.
Tell us just what it is that you're helping us with.
So, I like to say, in a nutshell, that I help ordinary people do extraordinary things with words.
Oh.
And I agree with you that it's definitely not just publishing the book. Like, there's so much that happens outside of that. For example, and I always like to use myself as an example to think about the things that I've been able to accomplish. And so a lot of that has been not only publishing one book, but I've also published 5 books. I've been able to do a lot with television and radio, so a lot of media and press interviews around my debut novel, which was about my experience of overcoming domestic violence. So a lot of that opened the door for me to be seen as a local expert in that area. So anytime there's a law change, or there's been an incident of domestic violence, I'm called upon to do a lot of television and radio interviews. And in addition to that, my book has been used as a required text in a local college and university here in my state and in my city. And so I'm just very excited about when I take that same sort of knowledge and understanding and I show my clients that they can do the same thing, and I'm able to teach them how to walk through that process.
You know, as a martial artist for all my whole life, and the one thing we like to teach, and I know my brothers and sisters out there across the globe who've been teaching martial sciences and the protection art and self-protection, it is this abuse that we keep putting on not just our society, but our women. And I know men get abused also, and I'm not discounting the abuse of men, but something drives us into a whole different disgust when we have abused women. I have 7 daughters. Most people know, yes, I'm a dad of 9, and I have 7 daughters. And out of my 7 daughters, 4 have been attacked. So things when it comes to abuse and abuse of women and abuse of people, and any violation whatsoever, it's very disgusting. So what's some of those things that, is there like things we should look for? Because no matter how many times we talk about it, we know people are still being abused.
Yes. One of the things that I often encourage when I'm asked about that is, as women or men in a relationship, that we really need to pay attention to our gut. Right, we really need to do that sort of gut check with ourselves because we know not only how we want to be treated, but we know when things aren't right, and we know when a relationship is not serving us. But the problem with women is that we are some of the most hopeful creatures on the planet. We think that we can love somebody enough to where they'll stop the abuse, and we can somehow fix ourselves. And by fixing ourselves, we're somehow fixing them and their behavior, not realizing that causes us to take ownership and take responsibility of the abuse when it's really on the shoulders of the abuser. So I tell women all the time, you have to learn how to trust your gut. If your gut is screaming at you and telling you, hey, something is not right, then be open and honest enough with your partner to say, you know what, I don't like how you talked to me just now. Let's talk about that. Or that's a red flag for me because of a previous experience. Let's have a conversation about that. Because that's the sign of a healthy relationship. If you can't be honest and communicate with your partner, that's the number one red flag.
You know that,
you have to be able to.
And I agree with you, Ms. Tamika, is that, with teaching for me it's emotional sciences. But the one thing before we get into all that, it's expression. We have not been taught how to express. Do you feel that to be true?
I I agree. And then a lot of, with not being able to talk to express ourselves properly, it comes out. It's always going to show up in our behavior. And not just in how we communicate with each other, but even with our body language, it just shows up. So we have to learn how to healthily have conversations. We have to learn how to be present, to be in the space, to respect, to trust. Like all of that ties. To me, those are true expressions of love and what it means to be in a relationship without even having to use the word love. Love to me is about respect and trust, honesty, communication, where it's mutual. It's not just all on me to give you those things and you giving me nothing in return. That's a lack of expression. And when that happens, then there is that imbalance in the power and the control in the relationship. And then the door is open for abuse to enter into it.
Now, we know, you and I know, and I do know this from working with women in abuse shelters in different situations, women are afraid to get back into a relationship. How can they? Because I believe as human beings, we're a communicative animal. We deserve to have loving partners, caring partners, compassionate partners. We were not built to be alone. But it must be quite fearful to get back into a relationship concerning that you're going to repeat the same cycle.
Right. And so what I did before I entered into another relationship, I went through years of therapy. I know a lot of people don't like the word counseling or we see it as a negative, but that was really the thing to help me reconnect with myself. I lost so much of myself in the situation with my ex, that I had to learn how to find Tamika all over again. And I had to learn the things that I liked, the things that I disliked. And one of the things that I discovered is that I was doing a lot of stuff in our relationship because he wanted me to, not because I actually enjoyed them. So there is the freedom that comes into play when you are 100% yourself, and sometimes you have to, enlist the services of a trusted professional to aid that process for you. We're talking about bridges, so that's what it was for me. The counseling was the bridge to help me to get back to myself. And once I was 100% comfortable in myself, I could then open the door for another loving partner.
I just wanted to keep welcoming people to know that you listen to Bridges Live, and Bridges Live comes on. You can catch the podcast on iHeart and iTunes and iHeartRadio. You can always reach me at drpaulholisticscience.com. We're talking to Ms. Tamika Sims. Tamika Sims is an award-winning author, and she also is a life coach and a best-selling writer. So you write about specifically abuse, or you write about living your best life? Well, what's your approach to the writing, and what's your approach to the education you like to give?
So writing, I prefer, I'm a nonfiction writer, so any books, the majority of the books that I've written have been pertaining to something about life or business. Because I believe that life is just stranger than fiction, and it always gives us material to talk and to write about. So that's my predominant writing experience. The clients that I work with, they can typically run the gamut. I have fiction as well as nonfiction, writers that are under my belt. So, and as far as the approach goes, it's really, I always tell people, it's important to tell the story that needs to be told, not necessarily the story that you want to tell, because those are oftentimes two different things.
Can you explain the difference?
So, there's always going to be one pivotal book that defines our life, that defines sort of our purpose and defines our how we show up in the world and how visible we are for the people that need us. And that's oftentimes the book that people shy away from writing because it's the most painful, it's the most traumatic, it's the one that caused them to do some self-checks, it's the one that's impacted their families or their careers or whatever the case may be. So they would rather choose to write something that was easy or to write something that was second nature to them rather than dealing with and telling the story that can not only change their lives and bring healing to them, but can also change their lives and bring the healing to others. I believe that we don't go through our experiences just so that we can go through them. I believe that we go through our experiences so that we can be a living, breathing example for those who need our testimonies, and for those who need our stories of being able to overcome, be resilient, and also be able to bounce back.
And I just want to, I agree with you so, like, 100%, because I believe once we open up the light that we are, we're able to shine into the darkness for other people. And I think that's what when you talk about that soul searching action. Now, people can do it in so many ways. People can do it in writing, people can do it in singing, but there is an artistic way of forming that light to shine for other people. I do believe that.
Right. Yep, I agree. And it's not an easy thing, so I don't want the listeners to think that what I'm saying is easy. It's not. It took me 4 years to write my first book, and I was going through therapy, but I didn't want to relive those most painful moments. But I knew in myself that in order for me to do an adequate job for my reader, I had to put myself back into those situations again, which meant I was reliving that abuse all over again. So it's not an easy thing when you're telling that story, but it can be done. Now, it may take you a while, and it may require a lot of starting and stopping and writing through tears and all of those things, but it can be done. And once you do it, you'll be able to see an immediate sort of return on that time investment that you gave just by being a willing vessel and just by being willing to share that story with the world.
One of my books that I wrote that was, I'm writing two things right now, because somehow as a writer, I don't know why we're always working on so many different writing projects at one time. Is that true for you too?
To not be a multi sort of writing person, author. I'd like to put my focus and all my energy into one project. Now, I may be working on my project and then have my client's project as well, but as far as myself, my brain is a little bit too, creative for me to focus on more than one project at a time. I have to get laser focused and finish, because otherwise I would just have so many open projects that I would never complete them. So I have to get focused on one. Okay, so
I need your help. Because I'm all over the place. I do. Because, so I'm writing a dictionary, a holistic dictionary, and I'm not reinventing the wheel on that. Those are really simple. And I'm not, that's really easy because it's more like facts and stuff. But this other book is called Out of the Shadows and Into the Black. And it's about me growing up as a young black boy. And the reason why I put Out of the Shadows, because I don't think young black boys or me, I didn't think I was ever seen. So I'm writing myself out of the shadows and into being a black human being, a black man or a black boy, a black person. So, and I did, and that is going through some of the toughest times of my life and reliving that and going through all that. And even though I've gone through all my help and therapy and stuff, it's still, like you said, it is writing through a lot of tears.
Right. It is. And it's tough. And again, those more personal life stories that are transformational by nature, they're going to be the toughest for us to write, but they're also going to be the stories that have the greatest impact.
So as you're helping
and at the end of the day, that really makes it all worth it.
As you're helping people find that writing character in their life, what are some of the things that you help them look for to bring this out of them?
See, I really believe that I have a unique gifting in the area where I can see what they can't see.
Wow.
So a lot of times I'm helping my clients to get over certain fears where, and encouraging them with that your story is good enough, that people do need what you have to say, that somebody is going to read it, because that's a very real fear. You're being vulnerable, you're being transparent, you're being open, you're telling a story that was never told before. So there's a lot of fear and negativity that starts, and there's this negative internal dialogue that we start to have in our minds and in ourselves. So I'm the person that comes along and helps them to see the value and the validity in themselves, and then they can channel that into putting their words on the pages.
I want to get back to abuse. We know we see a lot of things in our media which we don't see enough of, what these famous people have been abusing these women for a very, very long time. And I'm not going to get into, why aren't they being prosecuted? That's a whole different story. But what is it about our social system that you believe that has allowed this to be such a dominant issue at this time, for a long time?
The thing that people don't keep in mind as it pertains to domestic violence is that it's a learned behavior.
Yes.
It's a learned behavior. And it starts in the homes. I grew up in where my father was abusive to my mom. And I said to myself as a young girl, I'll never let a man physically abuse me the way that my father did to my mother, only to become an adult and fall victim to the hands of an abusive personality. Because the other thing is that when we grow up with it, it's normal to us. So me finding someone who, under the auspices of love, said, well, I love you, and he hits me in return, then I'm thinking, well, that's what my dad did, so that's normal, so that's okay. Right? So we normalize it, and in that process of normalizing it, we become desensitized to what's really happening. And a lot of the abuse that's going on behind closed doors is not physical. And that's the other part, is that there are many people walking around with scars that no one will ever be able to see. But on the inside, they are a fraction, a shell of the individuals that we were created to be. So, but it's a learned behavior. It's, it's made fun of or light of in barbershops and on basketball courts. And, men aren't holding men accountable, and, vice versa. Women aren't holding women accountable. We aren't, calling and speaking to the men and the women that we were created to be. We're allowing certain things to happen because it's okay, or that's not my business, or that's their relationship. We're not realizing we're all responsible for each other. We're all of one big community. No matter our race or ethnicity, we're still a part of the human race.
Correct.
So that makes us all equal in that aspect. And so we have to begin to accept responsibility and have some of these conversations that are talking about what healthy relationships look like, even if that's never, ever been modeled for us before.
So when, if we work backwards, I say if we don't learn to express ourselves, then it's kind of like if you're going through something, say something. And that's probably the one thing I think I bless my kids. We all talked about, even when their mother had passed early in their lives, and things that we've been through in long situations. It was like, we need to learn how to communicate and express ourselves. This has nothing to do with right or wrong, because this way, if we know where we are at, we become stronger about being able to go through this together. So that's how to fix it. You said something that I think is more like an underline. How does a person normalize something that is unhealthy? What is the change in that? Because if we can stop people from normalizing things that aren't healthy, then it won't persist for such a long time. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. To me, that starts on an individual level. It's an individual thing. We have to accept the responsibility for ourselves. And first of all, I believe that we need to be healthy and whole individuals for ourselves. It has nothing to do with an intimate partner or companion or whatever. You have to be whole and complete in and of yourselves. I've never bought into the rhetoric that we need people to complete us.
No.
To have, you know what I mean? Like, we need to be whole people when we meet someone else, so that it's a healthy situation from the start.
Right.
But if you have people that are broken, who don't know how to talk, who don't know how to engage in healthy dialogue, understanding that everything is not an argument, it's about getting an understanding, that's how we start to denormalize that behavior. And that's how we start to really create change. It's a systematic problem. Domestic violence is a community problem. It's a public health issue. It's killing people because we're afraid to talk about it. It's still taboo in certain cultures, African American communities.
Yeah.
A lot of churches still don't want to talk about it. It's still a taboo subject, but we have to start calling a thing, and we have to start talking about it in open forums where people can really get the help that they need. That's how we start to denormalize it and say, you know what, this isn't okay. And it's no longer going to be okay, but it starts with us as individuals.
When you said we have to start talking about it, and it's one of these cultural things that people still tend to sweep underneath the cover, is there a high percentage of economic abuse? Meaning that if you live in low economic standards, it's more likely you have higher abuse?
No, it's not about, it's an issue that impacts, one of my social workers used to say it's an equal opportunity employer.
Okay.
Like it doesn't matter about, it doesn't matter about socioeconomic status, education, race, none of that plays into it. It's a power and control issue, and that's it. Right, and so that's how we have to see it. Power, control, and intimidation, that's really it. Now, in the rural communities and communities where they don't have access to greater resources, you will find higher occurrences, but then you have to remember that even though domestic violence is more widely reported, you still have only 1 out of every 10 relationships reporting an incident. And a lot of times we aren't made aware of abuse in a situation until it becomes deadly or until a partner is seriously injured. That's when it's made aware, but they've already been experiencing years and years and years of abuse. It's just never talked about and never reported. So there really is no true handle on how this is really impacting our families and our communities.
When I look at some of the things that is going on in video and the music industry and a lot of these things that this subjugates our women, and really we and I'm sure there's other people that have talked about this too, how we just don't support our women to be strong women, and yet we still use them as sex symbols, we still use them as pieces of object, we still think of this archaic way, and yet now we do these commercials, we do these podcasts, we do these radio shows, and yet our young women are still not listening. What else can we do?
So, women need to start sticking up for other women.
Thank you.
That's just it.
That's just it.
And I'm a woman. I believe strongly in women. I have a heart for women. I serve women every day. But we have to start standing up for each other. We have to stop victim blaming. Women can be some of the key destroyers of other women. We tear each other down with our words. We, talk bad about each other. We don't hold one another accountable. We're not genuinely showing love, care, and concern. And that's a problem. Because if I don't have family, I should be able to go to my sister, quote unquote, and be able to let her know what I'm going through, what I'm experiencing. But we don't create environments where that type of exchange is possible. Now, we create environments to be petty and to be catty and to do all of those things, but we don't create environments where there's a healthy exchange that can happen, where I can go to you and say, hey, this is what's happening in my relationship. Now, I'm not going to you so you can judge me, and I'm not going to you because I necessarily want you to solve my problem. I'm coming to you because I need a shoulder. And we have to start creating those spaces for each other.
And, I hope we could do some better networking out there where women can depend on women to build women up. Right. And I think we need to have more of a strong women's society, because the male dominance has caused such a sickness throughout culture and through our society that is just it has been tearing it apart for over 200-300 years. It's just this male dominant thing that's going on. It's quite disgusting, and I know if women start to feel stronger, I know we'll probably end up back at the burning them at stakes, because God forbid we want strong women around here, right? So we'll have to create some type of, they're witches. So
no, it's important. I mean, we just, it's so important. I believe that, women, we're the givers of life.
Mm-hmm.
We are, I know that in animal kingdom, there are certain animals that are hunters, but women are hunter-gatherers. We know how to go out there and make it happen. Even in the animal kingdom, you find the women or the lioness and the fawn, they're going out first because, that's just how it's set up. So as women, we do have to start to stand up and take the lead. And it's a great time to be a woman, to be in a position to be able to do that, but not so that we can continue to rise. I mean, we're going to go to the top anyway, but so that we can also bring someone along with us. And the more that we do that, the more we'll start to see systematic change across the board. But until that happens, it's always going to be this rift because we're allowing it. We're allowing each other to be taken advantage of and hurt and abused, and oftentimes we're the perpetrators of that.
Miss Tamika Sims, you've been just hitting it on all notes. If people had questions that, I hope this type of podcast and Bridges Live, where people connect, again, this social environment where they can say, I need to go ask a strong woman like you. How can they get a hold of you?
So, of course, they can follow me on social media. My Instagram is at Get Right With Tamika on Facebook, and then they can always send me Tamika L on Facebook and Instagram as well. My website, I'm in the middle of a rebrand shift, so that is not up and running yet. If you connect with me on social media, I'm happy to follow and engage, and I can share some additional information with them there.
And now some of your clients are writers too, and they can get, if they want to start to learn how to write a book and start getting into writing, they can also contact you on that?
Yes, they can send an email to GetWrite, WRITE with Tamika @gmail.com. So they can send it to GetWriteWithTamika@gmail.com.
Now, what's one of those writing helpful hints that I'm going to ask you to throw out there for that young writer who says, I'm going to start writing today? My thing, I'm going to give one. I'm going to say, if you want to be a writer, just write. What's one of those things you could give for him?
So, I don't like that advice.
Oh, ouch!
I do not like that advice. I am a person, I'm a foundational writer.
Okay.
And so I always walk my authors through a specific process. So there are 4 things. You asked me for one, but I'm going to give like a bonus. I tell my clients to think in 4 areas. Before you start writing anything, know this information. The purpose of the book, the mission of the book, the vision of the book, and the ideal reader. Before you start any writing, you need to know the answer to those 4 questions.
That's going to help me, because been such a big thing on, the way my brain works, I just start writing, and then all of a sudden it starts to form itself. And that's different than the book Out of the Shadows into the Black. That is something that was very purposefully written. It is something maybe of a healing process to me. It's writing through those tears, what we talked about earlier.
Uh-huh.
Well,
yes, so it's important. You have to have a solid foundation. I can't tell you the number of frustrated authors that I talk to in a month because they're making no sales. Nobody's buying their book. Nobody's talking about it. They aren't talking about it anymore. And I always ask them the question. I said, well, who did you write the book for? And they can never answer it.
Wow.
Because a lot of times people think that it's just about writing the book. No, you have to make sure that you're writing a book that your audience even needs and or wants. Because otherwise, you're just writing just because. Yeah. Nobody's going to buy anything that they don't need.
That's true. That's true.
So you have to know that, and you need to know that going in, and asking yourself that question along your writing journey. Asking your reader, and I tell people this, it may seem a little odd, but ask your reader, what do you need to know right here? What else can I share right here? What will make sense for you? Have those conversations. It's only going to make your work stronger at the end.
Well, thank you so much, Miss Tamika Sims, and thank you everyone thank you everyone for listening to Bridges Live. I'm Dr. Paul. You can always catch me on drpaulholisticscience.com, and we'll be doing this again next week. Thank you, and God bless.